Old veterans.
And showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network and one of your hosts. And for the first time here in 2020, I am joined side by side with my co-host, Eric Simpson, who is a business improvement and transformation consultant for MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, tell people where we are right now.
Well, we are in sunny Santa Barbara, California, Rich, just getting off of the end of AVIC's Frankly MSP Live conference.
And we are going to be talking about AVIC here on the show. Very good conference, very interesting conference. I will say it's also been a nice week for me to be in Santa Barbara. I am from Seattle, as regular viewers know, and all week long here at the show, my phone has been blowing up with notifications from the Seattle city government about road closures and delayed garbage pickup because of all the snow back home. It's not been snowing here in Santa Barbara.
You've been quite insulated the last few days, I would say.
Well, let's talk a little bit about AVIC now. I mean, one of the things that made the show so great here is that unlike a lot of vendor conferences, they really didn't spend very much time talking about themselves. You didn't get the usual product roadmap kind of presentation, the talk about sales goals for the year, technical training, and so on. It was really about business growth and business strategy and peer-to-peer interaction, which I thought was kind of a nice, kind of a refreshing change of pace. But from a news perspective, I did get a chance to sit down with Alex Hoff, who's the Chief Product Officer over there, and get a look ahead at what AVIC is doing in terms of its platform. And what he told me is the big theme for this coming year is really turning their network management solution into something that can identify any device, anywhere, anytime. Now, it in fact can do that to an extent today. The product has been around for a while. Obviously, it was designed from the get-go to be a very intuitive, easy-to-learn solution specifically for MSPs. And so for the sake of ease of use and simplicity, they really focused initially on being able to identify switches and routers and firewalls and traditional network gear, and it does that very well today. But obviously, there's lots of other stuff that's showing up on SMB networks today, all sorts of smart bulbs and smart thermostats and all this other IoT stuff. Right now, that kind of, the AVIC system will see that, it'll show it to you on a network map, but it can't really identify it for you. And so one of their big objectives for this year is to begin getting better at that. They have a very interesting sort of analytics-driven approach to how they're going to approach that, where they're going to be looking at all of the data that they collect from all of the end users supported by their MSP partners and looking for patterns and signatures in traffic flows that maybe distinctively identify a Nest thermostat versus a Philips smart bulb, for example. So it's going to take them a little while, really, until they can identify everything that shows up, but they're hoping to make some pretty serious strides there and really kind of enable their MSP partners to do something that increasingly they need to do, which is to not only be able to spot, but secure all those different non-traditional network-attached devices.
Right. It's really kind of the fueling of the ability for MSPs to really get a handle on these additional IoT devices that are being brought in by who knows who, right? Every business has, different vendors that come in and they'll install something, or maybe like you mentioned, they'll have thermostatic controls, or they'll put in some smart lighting, they'll put in all these devices that when we run our traditional tools come up with an IP address and a question mark, right? So it's really difficult to understand what those things are and to develop a security posture and a support and maybe maintenance posture for those devices. Now, some of the partners that I've been working with, Rich, are trying to figure this stuff out themselves and are reaching out into kind of the retail space and pulling in devices that monitor retail IoT devices. Retail has been using and identifying these IoT devices for a lot longer than our industry has. So what they're trying to do is cobble together different solutions to try to identify what those devices are, and then as a result be able to upsell their clients on additional services to manage and secure and maybe even maintain and update those IoT devices as well. So this approach by AVIC which is unique from the fact that, I understand they're also going to be identifying how the MSPs themselves are naming these devices when they find them. So they're not relying simply on the MAC address to figure out who the manufacturer is and trying to figure out that way. But if 100 MSPs name this particular device with this particular signature, Nest thermostat, for instance, right? That's going to go into their ease their capability to properly identify and name these for the rest of the partners out there. So it's really cool using that kind of AI perspective, but also that crowdsourcing capability together to deliver something valuable for partners. I think it's really awesome.
And if it's not already perfectly obvious why you should be paying attention to IoT devices, two reasons. If you don't know they're out there, you can't manage them, you can't secure them. And if you are to any extent at all charging by the endpoint, those things are endpoints. So there's revenue for you in it as well. So we're here at the AUVIC conference. There was a phenomenal presentation at the very end of the conference here, Eric, that has inspired your tip of the week.
It has, and Nigel Moore came all the way out from Australia to deliver this amazing keynote that really reflected his journey, kind of battling a bunch of business challenges, and he even shared some personal challenges along the way, and gave us some prescriptive advice in how he was able to come through this and become a better leader, a business professional, a better version of himself. And it really, I think, impacted the attendees. So, thanks, Nigel, for delivering that awesome keynote. Nigel also runs the Tech Tribe. It's a community online where he tries to give back to MSPs and IT providers. So thanks for all you do, Nigel. I'm going to pull one point from your keynote yesterday, and I think it probably really resonated with me, was the fact that he mentioned that we as individuals, and I'm going to kind of parse this, not exactly what he said, but we're basically a composite of the 5 people that we each spend the most time with. So he used a little bit different phrasing and had a really nice illustration on the board, but the point here is that if that is true and we are a composite or some kind of a combination of the 5 people that we associate closest with, from our beliefs, from our strategies, and things like that, then it makes sense, Rich, that if we want to become better at something, better leader, better parent, better business owner, better significant other, then we should seek out folks that are better at those things than we are and surround ourselves with those types of individuals. Nigel put it very, very, simply and clearly, and it's something that, at the beginning of last year, I recognized in myself, look, if I'm going to become better at these things, I'm going to want to rub elbows with folks that are much more successful than I am. So I've attempted to do that, and it's kind of my philosophy. But the way he put it made me see it in a really different, unique way, and it's very simple to understand. If these are the people that you're going to spend your time with, then basically expect what you expect, right, based upon how they operate and what they do. So I thought it was a very powerful lesson, and so think about that in improving yourself and how valuable you are to others.
He had a very clever way. That was one piece of advice. He had a number of things he talked about. It was all really very interesting. And he had a very clever way of positioning it in terms that would be familiar and comfortable to people who provide IT services. Like he was talking at one point about, really conquering the self-doubts that can hold you back. And he called that, debugging your mental OS, basically. And when he got to the part of the presentation you're talking about, he said, this is, upgrading your personal network, basically. Is getting, getting the right network in place for your life and business success, because the people you spend time with, whether you're conscious of it or not, will influence you. And so you want to be around people who are going to influence you in a positive way.
Definitely.
Well, we have got time for just one more story this week, and it comes from our friends at Spotify. And by golly, it turns out if you've got pets why should you be the only person in the house who's enjoying Spotify? There is now Spotify for Pets, a podcast playlist, excuse me, specifically designed for your dog, your cat. If you're not home, you can just get the music cranking for them, maybe, you know. And I love it. The one that they have for the dog actually has, you know, actors coming on and saying, "That's a good boy," and just, you know, making them feel not so alone. And the good news is, and listeners to the Channel Pro Weekly podcast will understand why this is good news. We won't get into the details here, but they do have a playlist. There is a Spotify for Pets for iguanas. Who would have thought it?
You know, as I was prepping for the show, reading the show notes, Rich, I was just trying to think, well, what songs would be on a playlist for like dogs, like maybe "Oops, I Did It Again," or, you know, those kinds of things, right?
Because we know they have a sense of humor about where they go. Spotify for Pets, check it out, folks. And please check us out every week on the 5-Minute Roundup. That is all the time we have for this episode. But if you like the show, you want to keep up on new episodes, maybe take a look at some older ones that you've missed, best thing to do is go to the Channel Pro Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe to that. Make sure you click the little bell there if you want to get notifications when new episodes become available. To read more about AUVIC, we've got lots of great coverage of the AUVIC event here up on the Channel Pro website right now, but also other great stories going up every day about developments in the news, business growth strategies. That is all out there for you at channelpronetwork.com. Go regularly. If you want to learn more about Eric and the work that he does with his clients, the destination is ericsimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So once again, all the time we have this week, we will be back with you side by side again at another conference a week from now. Until then, please enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.